In this presentation, we're going to import bank data or data we're imagining is from the bank into QuickBooks Online with the use of a CSV file, which is basically a spreadsheet file, a file that you can construct and manipulate with the use of Microsoft Excel and then save as a CSV file. Let's get into it with Intuit's QuickBooks Online. Here we are in our Get Great Guitars practice file. We're going to go down to the banking section on the left-hand side. Here's the story that we have at this point in time. We said, hey, we're trying to connect to the bank, but we couldn't get all the transactions we wanted because we want a full year of transaction, or in this case, we want a month's worth of transaction. We couldn't get it for whatever reason. Therefore, we're not going to be connecting, but instead uploading. So we're imagining we got this information from the bank. We've converted it to a CSV file, basically a spreadsheet, and now we're going to be uploading it into the QuickBooks system. Once done with that, we will in essence be in the same kind of situation as if we had the bank connection with those transactions in our system that will then have to apply out, assign vendors, assign customers, assign income and expense accounts to. So I'm going to go ahead and upload the transaction here. We've got our options: get your info from the bank, open a new tab and sign into your bank, download the transaction in a CSV file, a QFX or a QBO or OFC form or FX only. So these are the file formats that you want this in as of. The QBO is probably going to, again, be the easiest one to upload, and you would be downloading. We're imagining that we downloaded these from the bank. And then, but the CSV file is basically kind of like an Excel spreadsheet type of format, and you can adjust it there. So this one would be the easiest thing to see and possibly manipulate before you actually put it into your QuickBooks system. And then close the tab and return to QuickBooks, or securely connect to your bank. More secure, no need to share files with the bank data. So that would be as if we can do that connection process. We're going to be over here. We're going to be filing. We're going to find this information. You'll recall that within our story, we're going to say, hey, this is the bank statement for March. We want to enter this into the system. For whatever reason, we couldn't get the data to automatically transfer within the bank feeds. Therefore, we're going to download this information from the bank in a format that we can then upload it. Obviously, the bank statement has this laid out in terms of, the summary up top, and then the deposits and checks on the right, the decreases. We want to see this in terms of just a listing of the deposits and checks, because that's what we need. That's the raw data we need to enter and upload into the system. So when you do the process of downloading, if we imagine we downloaded it from the bank in terms of a CSV file, which you can open basically in Excel, then it would look something like this. We just got the date, we've got the amounts, and we have the description. So that's going to be the raw data that we have, that we're now going to take this information and upload it into QuickBooks Online. Note this is in Excel, and you can use Excel to save with different extensions by going to Save As and Browse. So in other words, if I wanted to change this from a CSV file to an Excel file or vice versa, when I save, I can then change down here to the CSV file or the Excel file, whichever I choose to do. And that's how you can kind of manipulate the CSV files. So I'm going to close this back out, and then we're going to go back to our process here. So we're going to be uploading the transaction, and then we're going to browse. So we're just simply going to browse for that file so we can upload it. So I'm going to go to the browse feature, and I'm looking for the March CSV file. So you can see the extension down here is a CSV file. It still looks like an Excel icon, but it's a little bit different, right? Because it's got this A as opposed to these things over here. But in any case, that's the CSV file. That's the one we want. So I'm going to double click on that. And then it shows that it's in here by that like gray area. So it might, it's in there by that. Sometimes I get confused if it's actually uploaded or not, but you can see it there. It's got the CSV file. We're then going to say next. Then we need to choose the account that we're going to put this into. Now, if you've already set up the checking account, so it's got to be a bank type of account because we're uploading a bank account. If you haven't set one up, you can go to new and you could set up a bank account, which is just going to be a bank type account. You can call it just a checking account. And so let's just show you that process. If you were to say new account, it would have to be a bank type of account. That's the key. And then you can say cash on hand, or it's just going to be the checking account. That doesn't matter too much. And then change the name, possibly the name of the institution. If you have multiple accounts, you may want to put like the last 4 digits of the account number or something like that to differentiate from one account to the next. And then you would set that up. So I'm gonna close this back out because I have one set up already. I'm gonna be putting this into the checking account, which we've already set up. And then I'm gonna say next down on the bottom right. Next, we have kind of a mapping screen here. So if we were to open up our file here, you can see the headers up top, the transaction date, amount, and description. We need to match those up over here. So we've got the date, and that's pulling over the transaction date. That's what we have, and that should be pulling out the transaction date that's on our file, which is going to be this column. And then the date format, we're in the month, day, and year. You could change the date's format if you so choose. Then the description is going to be this column for us, column probably 3, the description, right? That's going to be column 3. And then the amount is going to be, in ours, it says amount column 2. So I'm going to be picking up then column 2. And then the default here, this is how most of the transaction reports typically are, where they have positive and negative numbers in them. So both positive and negative numbers are in one column. So in other words, if I was to look at this, I have one column with the increases, the deposits in positive, and all the decreases, all the expenses being negative. So we're going to say they both are appearing in the one column, which is the default. From what I've seen, that's kind of the norm. But if you have two different columns on the positive and negative, or increases and decreases, then you would choose the 2-column item here. Now we're going to select next, and here we have a list of the transactions. So we've got our list of transactions. So you can kind of compare this to the data file that you're importing. One thing you want to just make sure to look at is that the deposits should be positive, and the negatives should be for like checks and decreases. If that's not the case, then it's not picking up the proper increase and decrease columns, and you'll have to just take a look at the formatting. If that looks okay, and obviously we don't have a lot of data here. If you had a year's worth of data, you wouldn't be able to review possibly every transaction. However, you can get a feel for it, and you can check that the positives and the negatives line up correctly, that the date fields look to be populating correctly, as well as the description field. So I'm going to go ahead and say next, and then it's going to import. It tells us how many transactions we're going to import. QuickBooks will import 13 transactions using the field you chose. Do you want to import now? I'm going to say, yes, I do. And then we're going to say, next step, accept your transactions. You're in control of how your bank info goes into QuickBooks. Transactions only show up in your books after you review and accept them. So in other words, they're not actually in your bookkeeping. They're not going to show up on your financial statements at this point in time. They're in kind of like a holding window that you'll need to accept, and then apply out accounts, apply out customers and vendors if applicable, and then they'll populate. So I'm going to say, let's go. And then here's our transactions down here. So there's the transactions in basically our bank feed field, where we have now not positive and negative numbers, but you'll see the spent item decreases, received items basically increases or deposits. Again, note at this point in time that if I was to say go to the reports over here and open up, let's just say the balance sheet, open up the balance sheet and change the dates up top from, I'm going to say the whole 01/01/20 to 12/31/20, and run that report. I'm going to close the hamburger up on the left-hand side, hold down Control, scroll up just a bit. We're at the 125%, so we can see it a little better. And then we're going to go into the checking account to see the transaction detail within it. You'll see we have these transactions, but this is January and February, which I told you we populated prior to this using a full accounting system, and it stops at the end of February. There's nothing for March, in other words, which is the month that we have uploaded for the checking account. It's not in the QuickBooks system yet. It's not affecting the financial statements. It's not there unless until we we apply it out and accept the transactions, which means we're going to have to go into it, figure out what's the expense account, what's the vendors and the customers and all that good stuff, which we'll do in future presentations.